What happened to Tony Ferguson, guys? What the heck happened to Tony Ferguson? Man, I was so looking forward to this fight. Like, it was handed to him on a friggin' silver platter to win this thing. Everything was set up perfectly. It's like, yo, Tony's winning this fight. I don't see a world where Nate's gonna win. I know Tony's coming back after a knockout not too long ago. Got his head literally football punted by Chandler in the second round. So I know that plays a big factor. Nobody knew how he was gonna come back. But like Chael and everybody expected that he was at least gonna be, you know, having a different stance and doing some different things. Man, that guy's flying. But he came in there and he looked so slow. Not only did he look slow, he didn't look sharp. He was inaccurate with his strikes. Whenever he would try to go for a spinning attack, he was just completely off the mark. He could hardly land anything on Nate's face. Everybody was saying that Nate was going to get cut open in this fight because Tony Ferguson is so known for making people bleed, and Nate has so much scar tissue. But it turned out Tony was the one that was wearing all the blood. Immediately checked the kick, and his calf started bleeding. And then one of his eyes started bleeding, I think his left one. And then the next round, his right eye started bleeding. Meanwhile, Nate looks perfectly fine. Tony was nailing those legs. That's what he was doing. He was doing a lot of leg kicks, and it was working. But Nate just started piecing him up. Tony wanted nothing to do with it. He kept putting his back to him, kept spinning around awkwardly. And then there was moments where they're just sitting there. Nate was on the fence. Very weird stuff. Tony wasn't going after him. He didn't have that killer instinct at all. It's like he had way too much respect for Nate, which I understand to some degree. But say, Tony, like, what happened to your killer instinct, man? Your pressure used to be so legendary. You used to go out there and just put it on fools, and they couldn't stop it. And now it's just completely gone. And this time it looked like he was afraid to get hit again. Just like after that Gaethje knockout, you know? The same thing all over again. It took him like 3 fights to readjust because he looked really good in that first round against Chandler. But it took 3 matches, 3 fights, 3 different training camps to get himself out of that funk last time. And I'm afraid that if he even could come back, it might take that many again just to get his confidence back, because he did not want to get hit. I mean, he was running away from Nate, which is basically a pillow, you know, volume striker. He doesn't even have power. He was running away from Nate, circling around like he was against Gaethje in the 5th round of their fight. And we know Gaethje hits like a truck. That's pretty pathetic. I'm not trying to downplay Nate or anything, but that's really pathetic. It doesn't make any sense, and it's just something I don't want to watch. I mean, Luke Thomas said he was doing good, but I don't understand how he was doing good. I got to watch that video. At least I read that in the comment section of something I was watching. Apparently Luke said he was doing really good. I don't know. I don't think he was. He looked really slow. Nate was slow. There was no reason why Tony couldn't have put it on in this fight and just slashed him up. And then they're blaming it because he did a takedown. Maybe it was ill-advised. But Tony is a black belt too. And it's like everybody's underplaying that. They're all saying Nate's a black belt. He can submit people, but nobody was saying that Tony can submit Nate. And I think that's nonsense, because we're seeing it happen all the time. People that had never been knocked out get knocked out. Like Tony got knocked out. Usman got knocked out. People are getting submitted that never got submitted before. I mean, look at Glover Teixeira just got submitted by Iri Prohaska. So you can't tell me that doesn't happen. It happens. You know what I mean? But for Tony to go in there, and I understand that he's preparing for Chimaev, you know, and Tony was preparing for Jingling, but at the same time, like, what the heck? Like, what was that? That was terrible. It's nice to see Tony mixing in some takedowns for once. We haven't seen him do that since like 2014 or 15 or something, but I don't know what that was. And if the only success he was having on the feet was kicking his legs. And obviously you're going to go back to that and say I should have continued doing that because that's the only thing you're having success with. And maybe it was hurting Nate. Maybe that's why Nate was stopping and he was just playing it off really well. I don't know. But it didn't look good, in my personal opinion. Like, the whole time I was watching that fight, I'm like, what are you doing, Tony? This looks so bad, like, especially compared to how you looked against Chandler in the first round. Maybe he came back too soon. There's always questions surrounding these Tony Ferguson fights, every single time. It's like the Gaethje one. I can name off so many things. No crowd, which helped Gaethje because Gaethje usually goes out there and loses all control. And he started to, and then his coach pulled him back. But if there had been a crowd in that fight, he would have went for the finish, and that's when Tony scrambles and darces you. It could have been a completely different fight. If Tony tried to go for takedowns, it would have been a completely different fight, in my personal opinion. Because if he could have gotten Justin down, very easy to submit him because he's a lawn chair down there. He had 2 weight cuts. He was preparing for Khabib for several months, with multiple training camps. People say, well, Justin got that fight on short notice too. Yes, but Justin fights the same way against everybody. Tony was preparing for Khabib specifically, and everybody trains against Khabib differently because obviously he's going to try to take you down, and he's going to succeed. So that's always a different fight. But for everybody else, Justin Gaethje's always fighting the same. So it doesn't matter that he wasn't specifically training for Tony or not. When people say that, it's ridiculous. Plus, pretty sure he knew that he's going to have that fight beforehand, and he's preparing for it anyways because Khabib was going to fucking pull out, and he did. But it is what it is. So there were so many factors surrounding that fight. I can go on for days about it. It's ridiculous. If they ran that back, before, that could have been completely different. But that's where Tony went down. After he took all that damage in that fight, it just changed everything. It took so much from Tony, his pressure, just the scariness that he had. You know what I mean? Which you follow that. You know what I mean? When you take a win, you carry that win with you. It's momentum. Everybody else is afraid of you. You got that confidence. And once that's broken, you know what I mean? It all goes downhill. And then you add on the damage that he took in that fight. It's absolutely ridiculous. And we see what happened. Completely went downhill. But every single time, it's like, okay, he comes back and he fights again. Well, it's like maybe he came back too soon. So to kind of shake the cobwebs off. It's against Oliveira. I mean, Tony was known to be really good, black belt at the time. But obviously, Oliveira is one of the best in the UFC. So it's understandable. Comes back against Dariush. Dariush is a dark horse in the division. He's yet to fight since that fight, so we can't say how well that aged. I still think the guy's probably a killer. But at the time, it was like, what is happening? How is he getting controlled again by a guy that's not as legit, at least shouldn't be as legit as Oliveira, but who the frick knows? Maybe he is. Maybe he could beat Oliveira. I don't know, but it's just what is going on. There's always these surrounding questions. Comes back against Chandler, looks phenomenal in the first round, and then gets knocked out because Chandler just happens to throw a rangefinder that wasn't even supposed to do damage, wasn't even expected to hit, doesn't even train the damn kick, lands that on Tony, knocks him out cold. The most saddest day in history, I swear to God, because Tony was looking so good. As a Tony Ferguson fan, that hurt so bad to see him doing so good in the first and then turn around and having that happen because he was deciding to circle around and he stopped pressuring him. I don't understand it. Because back in this fight, we all knew it was too soon, to be completely honest with you. But, Tony Ferguson understands, too, that he's running out of time. And he's taking a lot of time off between fights. But that's what happens, especially when you get finished, that badly. He should have took off 6 to 8 months easily, but he didn't. Against Lee, that was going to be a terrible fight. And we see that now. It would have been absolutely atrocious. He would have gotten knocked out cold. I thought he was going to come back and have a legitimate chance because the competition that he's faced, Lee's just not up to that competition. At least not battle tested that competition level. But we see now that was not going to happen. I mean, I don't know. And again, maybe a little bit it's because he was giving, Nate too much, respect. And at the same time, change it up. Southpaw now instead of orthodox. I don't know. I mean, there's different things, different reasons, but it's like, but is it true? He didn't fulfill his 170. He's only had a few months to actually fill in that weight class. He didn't put on enough muscle for it. He says he did, but you look at him, he didn't look like he had any more muscle than he does at 155. He's always been a small dude in that regards. So, there's a lot of factors here, but it's like, but can I keep relying on that? And there's so many people that are trying so hard to come up with all these reasons, blaming his corner again. He has a new training camp, which may be not helping him at the end of the day. But it's like, man, everybody thought he was going to come back, after training, in the real camp, actually sparring with people and stuff, and he was going to actually be able to compete. And I just didn't see it here. What I saw here today, or last night, whatever, was just a Tony Ferguson that needs to just hang it up. Legitimately needs to hang it up. And this is coming from a diehard fan. It's like, I don't want to see him come back and fight like this. If he can promise me that he can come back and fight like he did against Chandler in that first round in his next fight, then I want to see him again. But if he can't guarantee me that and he's going to come out like he just looked, I don't want to see that anymore. I don't, because that was the perfect opponent for him, the same aged fighter for him. It was handed to him on a silver platter. And if he can't beat Nate, then don't even bother, because you ain't going to beat anybody else. Probably not even someone the top 30 probably. I don't know. There's some guys he probably could beat, but I'm not going to act like Nate's that bad. I'll take that back. But for crying out loud, man. And it's not like he's going to want to take a fight with someone like in the top 30. He's not going to want to do that. He's still going to want to fight top contenders because that's Tony Ferguson. I mean, I don't think Dana's going to kick him off the roster or anything, but this is crazy. And then that Gilly. What was that Gilly? Like, he basically, I mean, he botched the takedown, went right into it. Again, not to underplay Nate's skills or abilities or anything, but like, just like MMA Guru said, I saw it too when I was watching it live. It looked like Tony literally stuck his head in, and maybe he gave up. Maybe he wanted to give Nate, a win because he was leaving the UFC. He wanted him to have like a nice sail-off moment. And he's like, you know what, I'm going to be back, I'm going to be fighting again. I can get my win later. That's what it almost felt like. Because Tony Ferguson doesn't give up. You know what I mean? Even though it looked like a shell of Tony Ferguson, and it looked like he basically just fought Gaethje for 5 rounds, which is crazy to me. So maybe he did give up. But to see him tap like that is just insane. Everyone's saying, well, he survived an armbar from Oliveira and, like the heel hook or whatever from Dariush. And it's like, but he can't survive that. Like, I don't know. It's crazy. But it's sad. It's very sad. And like, and I was flipping out. I was very emotional when it happened. People are calling me like a fair weather fan or something, like a bandwagoner. And it's like, bro, I've been on this guy for the last 5 fights. I mean, here's the thing. I fell in love with Tony Ferguson back when I started watching the UFC, which was like late 2019. When McGregor fought Habib is when I got into the UFC. And soon after that, like very early 2020, I came across Tony Ferguson. And I started watching all of his fights, and I became a huge fan. So the very first fight that I got to watch live was him against Justin. And as you know, ever since then, it's just been losses. So it hurts me, though, very, very hard to never be able to see him compete at the level that he competed when he was in his prime, because I came in too late. And it sucks. It sucks. And I try to justify it all the time. I've been arguing with people nonstop in comment sections, just to the ends of the earth. Tony actually followed me on Twitter for a little while because back after the Gaethje fight, I told him he should have took him down and this and that, and he ended up following me. It was really exciting. I was super happy when it happened. And then I think after the Dariush fight, somebody commented on one of his Twitter posts, and I was replying, and I kind of criticized him a little bit, saying his BJJ wasn't up to snuff. And then I woke up like the next day, and he removed me, and that pissed me off. I got kind of mad, and I'm like, this is stupid. You know what I mean? Like, can't even take any criticism. I mean, he didn't block me. Usually he blocks people, but he just unfollowed me. And that upset me. But you know what? I still been on this guy, man. I still been, ride or die for Tony Ferguson, just defending him to the ends of the earth. Coming up with all these reasons why things are happening the way they are. But it's like, after this fight, I don't know if I can do it anymore. That's the point. That's the point that I'm trying to make. I don't know if I can do it anymore. This is like a full-time job when you're doing this. Like, obviously, I'm still going to support him. I'm still going to watch him if he does fight, as much as I don't want to see him fight anymore if he's going to compete like that. But, like, for me to, like, really go gung-ho and stuff, like, I don't think I can do it anymore, I'm not going to go in comment sections defending him anymore. Not that it matters anyway, because you're just screaming into an echo void, an echo chamber. Like, it goes nowhere, really. I mean, I think I changed a few people's opinions, but at the end of the day, it's like people are going to see it the way they want to. And like people keep bringing up, they're like, oh, this is what would happen if he would have faced Habib. Why did people want him to face Habib? He was obviously going to get decimated. It's like, bro, you're comparing a Tony Ferguson now, way after his prime, where they were supposed to fight like 5 years ago. And if he would have fought when he fought Justin before he took all that damage, it would have been a different fight too. Even though I think he did definitely lose some of his ability after he tripped over that table and undergo that surgery. I definitely think he lost some of his abilities that day. But still, he was still there. You know what I mean? But now you add on the Chandler knockout, which was so fierce. And it's like, if anybody can come back, it's Tony Ferguson. And that's what you always tell yourself. You know what I mean? Because you learn that this man is just, he's not normal, But, it's turning into a meme now at this point, I mean, Chandler turned him into an NFT. Connor's calling him McNuggets, like the true McNuggets, because he literally looked like a McNugget. I mean, it's sad to see, man. It's sad to see. And it's nice to see that he's still got fans, still rooting for him and everything. You know what I mean? But, like, it was not a good performance. Like, I don't care what anybody says. Like, it just wasn't. From neither of them, really. But from Tony, like, what was that? Like, I got to go back and watch it again. Because maybe it wasn't as bad as I was you know, what I thought it was when I was watching it live, but because I was expecting so much more from Ferguson. You know what I mean? I was expecting him to slice and dice him open with those elbows and to have him drenching in blood and to maybe even lock up the darts. Because, again, I'm not going to underplay Tony's BJJ, but at this point in time, I don't know if that even exists anymore. His wrestling clearly doesn't. I mean, that's a problem, too. People like to act like just because these guys are like Division I wrestlers and stuff back in college, and we all know Tony brings this up all the time. He's always living in the past, acting like, oh, I won, you know, this and this. I was on a varsity football team and that, and that's, yeah, but it's in the past, man. You know, and that's another thing. He comes into the press conferences, and it's all great and dandy. He has a lot of gems and funny things that he says, but it's like, but lately, I mean, it's a lot of the same stuff. He's like, you know, man, he's always like, I'm going to be real with you. You know what I mean? And he's always like, you know, I'm just doing my own thing now. He's like, I don't even care about the bullshit. You know, it's just like the same thing. Like every press conference now, basically. It's just him talking about, you know, his past and how he has a different mindset. And he's coming in, he's got a new, you know, a new coach and this and that. And it's like, but it's not doing anything for him. You know what I mean? And I can't see him coming in again, spewing some more of this nonsense and then going out there and performing like that. You know what I mean? And Khabib living rent-free in his brain. Like, I understand why, you know, he keeps bringing up Khabib. Because they were set to fight 5 times in a row, and that never happened. And he ran off and ducked them. I don't care what anybody says. He did not want to fight Tony Ferguson. That man was a killer back then, and he did not want to lose. And I think it's ridiculous that he ran away. During a lockdown, when he was in the U.S., when Dana was changing locations left and right, nothing was set in stone. They were all there in the U.S. ready to fight. He flies off back basically to his hometown. And then can't fly back because there's a lockdown. Supposedly, Putin could fly him out in a private jet. I don't know how real that story is, but it doesn't matter. He turns around and says he doesn't want to. Then his dad passed away, which is very unfortunate. But his dad wanted him to face Tony Ferguson and to go 30-0. And he's just going to pass it up. And then he blames it on his mother saying that he can't fight anymore. Well, here's something for you Khabib sack riders, okay? Khabib's mom says she doesn't want to fight anymore. But here's the thing. Khabib has never taken any damage in the octagon as far as I know. Like, no one's ever really landed super clean on him, you know, rocked him at all. He's never been cut. And there's people that have had their brains bashed in, you know, 10, 15, 20 fights in their career and are still fighting. You know what I mean? So what is his mom so afraid of? It's because it shows that Khabib got so close to death every single time he was trying to cut weight to 155 because he did not belong in that weight class. And she knows that. That's the sole reason. It's because he almost died the last time against Justin. And he missed weight against Justin, mind you. But they let him fight anyways because it's just how it is. Corrupt as shit. But it just goes to show you. That's the ultimate, you know what I mean, proof, in my opinion, that Khabib's a freaking pussy. Doesn't want to fight any wrestlers. Doesn't want to go up to 170. He didn't want to lose. And there's no way he's a GOAT. He's not even top 10 in my mind. You know what I mean? It's very impressive, his run, because to be able to perform like that regardless, because at any time, something could happen. Something could go wrong. Nothing ever did. You know what I mean? He was able to get through it. But to me, like, it's just pussy shit, man. It's absolutely pussy shit. And I can go on and on and on about that. But the point is, that's why he lives rent-free in Tony's mind. And, like, I don't blame him, because in his prime, he was the one that could have beat Khabib. I don't give a shit what anybody says. And I'm not saying he would have, but he could have. You know what I mean? Just like I said, that Justin fight could have been completely different. I'm not saying he could have beat Justin, but he definitely, you know, I mean, he would have, but he definitely could have. Because there's routes for him to win, especially if the circumstances were completely different for that fight. Justin took that fight at that time because he knew it was the best chance he had at winning and beating Tony. I mean, even his coach, even Trevor Whitman, told him not to do it because he had ducked Tony in the past. But Justin was like, no, I'm going to do it because this is the perfect time. He's been training for Khabib and all this other bullshit's happening. And it turned out to work out perfectly. And then we saw Justin go out there get completely decimated by Khabib because he's a lawn chair on the ground. But lately, Tony's been a lawn chair on the ground too. I mean, he's been able to survive pretty well, but just manhandled like it's nothing. And then today, again last night, just going in that Gilly, basically gave up his head, pushed his head in like he's Sonic trying to score rings or something. I don't fucking understand it. But it sucks. So it's like, where does Tony Ferguson go from here? That's the question everybody's asking, because clearly he wants to keep fighting. I'm sure Dana's going to keep him on for now because he's still a big name. He still has a lot of fans. You know what I mean? So I expect him to be there. Sam Alvey was there for like 12 straight losses or some shit, and they finally just caught him. So I definitely could see Tony being there for probably another couple fights. But I don't know. You know what I mean? I don't know. And he's going to keep going back. He keeps saying, oh, I'm learning, man. You know what I mean? You say, like, these are the consolation rounds and this and that. And that was all great and dandy when you're only losing a couple. But when you're 5 deep into a friggin' loss streak, you know what I mean? Like, what? And they're all killers. And that's another excuse people bring up. Well, they're all killers. You know, all top 5 fighters in the lightweight and then the legendary Nate Diaz. But it's like, but man, this was the perfect setup for Tony. For the optimal Tony. For prime Tony. You know what I mean? You have to admit. Like, it was a perfect opponent because Tony had the cardio, Tony had the chin, and Tony had the freaking blades and shades. Anybody would argue 5 years ago if they would have fought, Tony would have won that fight probably 9 out of 10 times because Tony was that good back then. You know what I mean? So he should have won this fight, even if it's a shell of his former self, because Nate's a shell of his former self. Tony still should have won that fight. So anybody saying that you're stupid for betting on Tony or wanting Tony to win or whatever, like, no, like... Anybody with a brain would have said that. Of course, there's factors that you can factor in. And the biggest one being he just got knocked out like 4 months ago. And that's probably one of the biggest ones. You know, it's not just the physical damage that he took from that, but the mental damage. Because now, like you said, he's afraid of getting hit again. Like he was after the Gaethje fight. He was afraid of getting hit. You can see because he wasn't engaging with Oliveira and Dariush like he should have on the feet. But then with the Chandler fight, he finally came back and he was looking good. He improved. You know what I mean? And then the Dariush fight, dude, he was dodging. Like, Dariush tried to put it on him in the feet, and he was dodging everything. Like, he was just slipping and jiving. It was beautiful to see. It was like Matrix. It's like, holy shit, Tony's improved, but defensively. You know what I mean? It's good to be more defensive, but you got to have that offense still, and Tony just didn't have it. But in the Chandler fight, he had it. He had that offense. Or Chandler's just not good, but clearly is good because he almost beat Oliveira. So MMA is so freaking weird because they can look really good in one fight, look really bad in another. It doesn't make sense. That's why MMA math is terrible, completely terrible, because it doesn't make sense. But, like, he looked good in that Chandler fight in the first round. And it just sucks because he had his number. And he should have won that fight. And we'd be in a completely different position right now if Chandler had not landed that kick. Because every naysayer that said Tony was going to get knocked out said he was going to get knocked out by a punch. Nobody thought he was going to get knocked out by a kick like that. Nobody. And I don't believe Chandler would have knocked him out with a punch. I don't believe it. I don't believe he would have even landed clean enough. Tony would have ate it. I just don't see Chandler. I mean, maybe he could have TKO'd Tony. I could have saw that happening potentially if he could have laid it on him. But I do not see him flatlining Tony. So I think Tony would have won that fight. He could have even got a finish himself in the later, half of that second or third round. Because he was looking good. You know what I mean? He was looking good. And I feel like Chandler would have just resorted to takedowns in that fight to try to win it out. Because he didn't want it on the feet. But then for him to come into this fight, and again, you can blame him now, well, he's a southpaw, but it's like, Tony, but you're a veteran. Like, you say that you're prepared for all this. You say you're prepared for, anybody. And then you go out there, and then you perform like that, and then you come back and you say, well, he's a southpaw. He was training for Hamzat. I shouldn't have shot for take. It's like, bro, but you used to be a D1 division wrestler. Which is another point I was talking about earlier, and I don't think I finished. Everybody brings up the fact that these guys used to be D1 wrestlers, like Justin and stuff, and they act like Justin's got really good wrestling. I said, Justin does not have really good wrestling. He had really good defensive wrestling against strikers. Not anybody like Khabib or Islam's level of grappling, by no means. And then people like to say, like, Oliveira's a good grappler. I don't really consider BJJ grappling. I consider grappling more like wrestling, on and off the ground. That's more of, like, grappling. And I don't believe Oliveira is very good at that. Personally, like really power wrestling like Khabib and Islam and those guys are. So, from Dagestan. So, like, Justin has none of that ability whatsoever. So to call Justin a wrestler is completely hilarious because people try to say Khabib fought all these people that are wrestlers and they bring up like RDA and this and that. And it's like, bro, RDA's biggest kryptonite is wrestlers. You know what I mean? I mean, yeah, he's like a 4th degree black belt, but Cerrone submitted him twice the last time they had, a BJJ match. Like, and Cerrone was another one that had beat Duck back in the day when he was in his prime because he had really underrated BJJ too. And they were set to fight like 4 times. It just didn't happen. But it's crazy to me. But it's like, coming up with all these excuses that Tony has, it just blows my mind. You know what I mean? Because it's like, yeah, I was following him. I was right along with him for the longest time. But now it's like, I don't know anymore, man. I don't know anymore. Because if you are as good as you say you are, then you still should have been a ready opponent to at least compete. Because, I mean, yeah, he was competing with the leg kicks, but it had not been for the leg kicks, he wouldn't have been competing in that fight at all. You know what I mean? And we've seen people win out, with leg kicks over someone that's striking, someone that's hitting them in the face with punches. We've seen it. But That was ridiculous. That was absolutely ridiculous to me, in my personal opinion, you know, that he comes out and says that stuff. And of course, people are going to eat into it. He's going to eat into it because he wants to, and he thinks he's better than he is. And I understand, if you're a fighter, you have to believe that stuff. Even for you just to go out there in the first place, you have to believe that you could win and that you're better than you actually are and all these things. But it's getting to the point of delusion now. Like Connor showed a lot of delusion. You know, Tony's been showing a lot of delusion, and I believed it for a while, but now it's like I'm not believing it anymore, man. His BJJ is not as good as I thought it was. His wrestling is just completely gone because he's scrapped out for striking. Doesn't want to get hit. Now he's losing like his accuracy. He's losing his pressure. And once all those factors are gone, like I don't care what they train, you know, at Jackson Wink, like it's going to be polishing a turd at this point. I don't know, guys. But I'd love to hear your opinions in the comment section, because we all know Tony's probably going to fight again. I don't know when it's going to be, but it'll probably be in like April or May or something next year. Unless he goes back to school for a year, because he said he's going to Harvard or something. I don't know, but who knows who it's going to be. But also, I saw Dustin Poirier tweet out Bum Olympics, which I thought was very disrespectful, even though I was kind of shitting on him myself. And it was funny to meme and stuff, but like to post it out there, that's just not classy, especially when Dustin Poirier used to be a very classy individual. You know, lately though, like him like blowing up on Chandler, I know that it caused this fight that they're going to have, which is wonderful. It's build up and everything is really good for that stuff, for marketing purposes, but like his class lately it's just not been there. I mean, even Gaethje came out when it's like, you know, congratulating them, calling them legends in the sport and everything, and it's like, good on you, Gaethje. You know what I mean? But like Dustin saying that stuff, like what the frick, man? You know what I mean? You gotta like, I mean, there's gonna come a day where you're gonna be in that same position. I mean, here's the thing though, with Dustin, and I was thinking about this, Dustin and Justin, like I don't see them ever going on like a 5 losing streak, and it's not because they're too good for that. No, that's not the case. I just mean after probably 2-3 losses maximum, I feel like both of those guys would just dip. Both of them would probably just retire. I don't think they would ever go on a 5 losing streak. But there will come a day, if they don't just sail off into the sunset, you know, in the next year or two, where they're going to hit that point too. And they're going to have that dragon still. They're still going to want to fight. And they're going to look the same. You know what I mean? Because Father Time does not skip anybody. You know what I mean? Some people can prolong it. Like friggin' Glover Teixeira. That man, the specimens of all specimens, for him to compete at that level at his age. But that's just very rare. You know what I mean? Very, very rare. And obviously, it's not going to happen at lightweight or even welterweight. You know what I mean? You're hitting 38. I mean, you're basically towards the end of your career. But, man, it's going to come a time. It's going to come back and it's going to bite you in the ass. And it already has, because Dustin hasn't been able to get the belt. Justin hasn't been able to get the belt. And they're not gonna, as long as Islam is there. You know what I mean? Because he's just as good as Habib. Not better. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I still think Oliveira's going to beat him. Even if Oliveira's there, they're not going to beat him. You know what I mean? That's just facts. Like, I don't see Dustin ever beating Oliveira, and I don't see Justin ever beating Oliveira. Chandler could have a chance. Even I don't think Chandler's very good, but styles make fights, man. At the end of the day, styles make fights, and that's a big thing that you have to take away when it comes to the UFC, man. You can have one fighter that just completely gets decimated by the champ, you know what I mean, but beats somebody else, and that somebody else could just be the perfect matchup for the champ and could beat the champ with ease. That's just the way it is. That's the way the cookie crumbles, because there's just a style, there's just an aura about them, there's just something about them, you know what I mean, that allows them to do what the other person couldn't do, even though they lost to that person. So it's just a crazy game, you know what I mean? It's just back and forth, and I had to say the lightweights could beat anybody any given day, but when it comes to like Oliveira and like Islam and Habib, like it's just not happening because they're on a different level, you know what I mean? And like I said, I think Habib was just there just because it was the easiest weight class for him. You know, there was no wrestlers there, no wrestlers anywhere near his level. He was just bullying strikers the whole time. You know what I mean? And he had a really good chin. He was very defensive on the feet. So it's like he never had to worry about getting knocked out. You know what I mean? And for him, it was just a walk in the park. Very little risk involved. So I don't think he's the GOAT. People can say what they want, but I don't think he's the GOAT. Just too much pussyfooting going on. Fighting like once a year. They had to make so many interim belts because that dude just didn't want to fight. Pulling out of fights, missing weight unprofessionally. It's crazy. Absolutely crazy. And talking about missing weight, look at Chimaev, man. That guy is a beast. I told people on Twitter, I'm like, dude, because I saw this video of Holland was dancing. And I'm like, I wouldn't be dancing like that, man, because very likely you're going to get taken down in the first or second round and just get completely decimated. And I didn't even expect Chimaev was going to go out there and take him down that quickly. And he scrambled for a bit. He's a good scrambler, but he could not stop that, Dar. So it is what it is. But that man is a beast, man. That man is a problem. So is Almeida. That man's a problem too. But yeah, I'm going on too far now. This is a 30-minute video. No one's probably even watching this shit at this point. But I don't know. Until next time, guys. Peace out.